Good morning, everybody. Commissioner Laird is unable to be here today, so I'm next in line on the slate of officers to run the meeting. So thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And let's start with introductions of commissioners. Could we just start with you, Commissioner Warren?
Okay. Judge Mike Warren, Hollis, Oklahoma, vacation capital of Oklahoma. I'm Chair JJOAC.
Juvenile Justice Oversight, might want Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee.
Correct. Juvenile Justice Oversight Advisory Committee. We answer directly to the Supreme Court, and we put together the education for the judges that's mandatory each year. And we also look at the statutes that are being presented, and we make comments to the Supreme Court on those.
Good morning, I'm Melinda Front, the Director of the Department of Rehabilitation Services.
Morning, I'm Jason Hicks, the District Attorney for the 6th Prosecutorial District, which is Caddo, Grady, Stevens, and Jefferson County. I guess this morning I always understood that my area was vacation. I guess maybe I'll just change it to God's country right there and just glad to be here.
I'm Jonathan Hall from Tulsa, also a great place to take a vacation. I'm the governor's appointee representing business and industry.
Kevin Corbett, I'm the Secretary of Health and Mental Health, and I'm also the CEO of the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority.
Rachel Holt, Executive Director for the Office of Juvenile Affairs.
Keith Reed, Commissioner of Health, OSDH.
I'm Jennifer Harrington, Commissioner for Children and Child Placing Agencies, but I'm the Vice President of Programs for Circle of Care.
Jackie Aaron, I'm the CASA representative and I cover all of Western Oklahoma, so also vacation. Home of Thomas P. Stafford.
Yeah, that's all.
There you go.
I'm Kaylee Kurth. I'm also from Weatherford. I'm here representing the PAR board as a foster parent with an agency. I'm a practicing pharmacist at the College of Pharmacy at SWASU.
I'm Sandra Bolzer. I am not a member of the board. I am an assistant attorney general who is the commission's advisor. I know Judge Warren from way back. He probably doesn't remember the days when I was in his courtroom as a CASA program director, and she has now replaced that program that I was initially involved.
Good to see you again.
Awesome. And I'm John Schneider. I'm the Executive Director at Youth and Family Services over in El Reno. And I'm here representing the Association of Youth Services appointed by the governor. So thank you all for being here. Do we have a quorum? Awesome. Next, I will turn it over to Amanda to introduce our guests.
Good morning, I'm Amanda Jett. I am the Executive Assistant for the Commission on Children and Youth. Online, I'm going to say your name. If you could please come on screen and introduce yourselves so that we know who's joining us virtually. And we'll start with Keith Hurdle. Oh, I apologize. Sorry, Keith. We're going to go ahead and skip staff to save a little bit of time today. Delana Sullivan.
Hello, I'm here and my video is not working, but I'm here.
Okay. Isa Turner. Mr. Turner, we cannot hear you. Your mute is still on.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in a dump truck, right? The water truck right now, so I'm sorry if y'all hear extra noise. I'm on a construction site. Yeah, but I'm Isa Turner, and I'm part of the board.
Okay. Brandy Bain.
Good morning, I'm Brandy Bain, and oh, dang it. And I'm with ABS Services, Financial Manager.
Ms. Wanda Felty.
I'm Wanda Felty. I'm from the Center for Learning and Leadership, and I'm former commissioner.
Carolyn McAllister.
I'm Carolyn McAllister. I'm with Resilient Payne County.
And Joe Dorman.
Joe Dorman with Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy.
I believe that is all of our guests.
Thanks,
And
Amanda.
would you like to introduce?
No.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Welcome guests. We're in the essence of time. We've got a few that are leaving a little early today, so we're going to switch the agenda around to our voting items while we have quorum. So we're going to begin with item number 5, presentation of proposed state fiscal year 2023 OCCY budget. I'm going to turn it over to Mark James. The floor is yours.
Good morning. We're gonna share my screen and go over the budget. There's a handout on the table. I'd like to go the budget for this fiscal year 23. Share this. Difficult to see on the screen, so you have a handout, and the information will all be available on our website as soon as the commission meeting is over. But I'm presenting the proposal to the commission for approval for our budget beginning July 1 of this year. So our appropriations for our upcoming year is the same as it was this past year, $2,509,414, which is the same amount we had last year. On the table here, you'll see the green rows. That state appropriation is 193. So that top row demonstrates the state appropriation. And as you're aware, almost all of our state appropriation does go to our personnel costs. And actually this year, 94% of our appropriations covers just the salaries of our current staff. In that green column there, it also, we're projecting the additional sources of income that we anticipate having throughout this coming year. And I'll go over each one of those here in a moment. But that I've broken down each of our departments. Those are the different columns with the headings across the top, demonstrating our different various programs that we are responsible for in statute and other programs that we've operate. And you'll see that I've broken it down by department, demonstrating how much we have proposed the budget be utilized from each of those different areas. And the column to the far right is the totals. So the yellow row row shows demonstrates our entitled proposed budget, total proposed budget, which is $4,280,601. That is our proposed budget for the full year, which is what we'll be presenting to propose for you all to approve today. But I will go over the revenues. So I mentioned appropriations. We have, because of our appropriations cover our salaries, we have to identify additional funding sources to actually operate the programs and do the work that our great staff are pursuing. Largely, we get reimbursements from 3 areas. One of those is the state 4E reimbursement. Much of our work qualifies for federal reimbursement from the federal 4E fund. So we anticipate, and you'll see that on the second row there, we're proposing just under $400,000 is what we're projecting to be able to be reimbursed for this coming year. We also have additional 2 grants that we received from the Children's Justice Act grant. And also keep in mind, all of these outside of our appropriations are reimbursed dollars. We will not get the money until after we've expended it. We have to demonstrate the work has been completed, and then we'll get this money returned to us. So because of that, we always have to have cash on hand at the start of the year to cover all those expenses, knowing that we will get reimbursed later in the year. And I'll cover that here in a moment as well at the bottom. But our funding sources are, we have the 200 fund listed there, and all of these funding sources go into that same fund. We have projected reimbursement, which is $400,000 is what we anticipate. We do have current cash on hand, which is what that third row is. And we anticipate using $256,000 of that to balance this year's budget. That's what we currently have, and we'll apply that for this coming year. And then for our CGA grant, Children's Justice Act grant, it's a grant that we apply for through DHS, but ultimately it's federal funding as well. We have 2 programs, our MDT program, and we support the CASA program, their training throughout the year. We anticipate just under $69,000 for MDTs and $10,000 for the CASA program. So those are 2 areas of resources. And we also have a partnership with the Department of Health. We have a grant that we received from them to work with our parent partnership boards and supporting the work that Danielle and Isabel and their teams are carrying out. So it's $235. Again, that will be reimbursed for after we work on that project. And the last one is a 210 fund. This is the CAMTA money that we receive the money comes to us, but then we just have to distribute it to the 37 multidisciplinary teams across the state. So we anticipate that being about $800,000. We really will not know that true amount until later this fall, just based on statutory formula plus court costs. So we propose $800,000. It could be higher and it could be lower than that. But again, that money goes from us and directly out to those teams across the state. So based on that, that is the budget that we propose, or we anticipate utilizing for this current year. I will mention at the bottom of the gray areas, we do at this point anticipate for our appropriations. After everything's paid out, we think we may have about $200,000 in current year's appropriations that will be carried over. A big part of that is, lapses in positions. Because again, most of our appropriations is position, is the salaries. So we have positions and it takes quite a while oftentimes for us to get those positions filled. So there are lapses. And plus there's carryover from the prior year that we oftentimes aren't always fully able to expend. So we anticipate $200,000, but we won't address that until fiscal year 22 is completed. When we come back to you in the fall, telling you what that final amount is and how we anticipate using that for the remainder of the year. I did mention earlier that we currently do have 4 refunds now. Mr. Bain is going to go over our budget reports later on the agenda, and you'll see in our 200 fund, we have about just over $500,000 currently in cash. But talking with Ms. Bain, and we anticipate by the end of all the fiscal year 22 is completed, we'll have about $300,000 available. And that $300,000 is what we're using on row 3 to continue to help balance the budget for fiscal year 23, which then creates our entire budget for $4.2 million. So that is a very quick, short overview of what our proposal look like is for fiscal year 23. If you have any questions, certainly would attempt to answer them. But ultimately, we need an approval for this. We have to submit this proposal to OMES for them to get it all finalized and completed and in place prior to July.
Great, thank you. Quick question. What was the budget compared to the 4.3 that you're budgeting now last year?
Last year's total budget was 5.2. We have reduced it, sir. And part of that is we've anticipate a reduction in the 4E proposal. Last year, our projection was quite a bit higher, and so we've reduced that projection.
And it would be true too. We had money that we were spending down. So as you've been watching the past couple of years, we had a kind of a nice little nest egg that we'd save for the database. And that database isn't going to cost as much as we saved. And so that money's getting spent.
Yes, I just failed to mention that part. We projected over the past couple of years, and we kind of set aside about $800,000 for our database. Turns out that database was only $500,000. So it's about $300,000 that we have been saving up that we ended up not using for that particular project, which then still gives us, we still have it available, which gives us that amount that we have in the
Are the carrying costs for the database in the IT category?
Yes.
Okay.
Along
with other things, I'm assuming.
Correct. We have about $50,000 that we anticipate as an ongoing cost from year to year for the database, and that's in an IT.
I move approval.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Please call roll.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Prince,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, next is agenda item number 6, OCCY Commission Officer Elections. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Commissioner Hall. I believe he was on the nomination committee. So I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner Schneider. The nominating committee was put together by Commissioner Laird, our chairman, and consisted of Secretary Brown, Commissioner Myers, and myself. We met via Zoom on June 8th. And at the end of the meeting, after discussion, we had decided that the slate of potential officers for this coming year would include Commissioner Schneider serving as chair, Commissioner Kurth as vice chair, and then I was asked to serve as secretary this next year. So Commissioner Laird did let us know that she contacted each of the mentioned commissioners, and each of them agreed that they should serve, that they would serve to be elected if they were elected. So at this time, I wanted to present those names to you for nomination of officers. However, their nominations do not preclude anyone else from being nominated. So if someone else would like to nominate another commissioner or themselves, you are welcome to do that at this time. So with that in mind, I would be happy to entertain a motion for additional nominations for the office of chairman. Okay. Do we have any further nominations for the office of vice chair? And lastly, do we have any further nominations for secretary? It's okay if you do. Okay, at this time, I would like to make a motion to nominate Commissioner Schneider for chair as recommended by the nominating committee.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, can we please call the vote?
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front. Yes. Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Judge Warren.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Schneider, for. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Commissioner Schneider.
All right, thank you. Okay, next, we need, I will entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Kurth for vice chair.
Oh, we need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Perfect, thank you.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth, Commissioner Schneider,
Yes,
Judge Warren.
Yes.
awesome. Commissioner Kurth, thank you so much for being willing
Yes.
to serve in that role. Right, next, I will entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Hall for secretary.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron.
Yeah.
Director Front,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurth,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
and Judge Warren.
Yes.
Paul, thank you for serving in that role. I appreciate it. Okay, next, I'm going to go back up to agenda item number 2. Review the minutes from the March 25th, 2022 special commission meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Could I make a point of discussion? I noticed that it appears the minutes were prepared in order of the agenda as proposed. And I know we went out of order. And so I don't know how we want to handle whether we want to do that as amendment here. Do you have?
And I just want to point, the problem with the way it's written, which Director Holt caught as well, is that depending on when commissioners left and came, it may look odd because they weren't included in a vote, that it's because they weren't there, but it's just kind of out of order. So
If it's the pleasure of the commission, we would be happy to reorganize it so it's chronological and doesn't flow with the agenda as it was written. It might be easier for someone to understand why someone was here in a vote and why they were not.
We need a motion to table.
We could. I'll move to table the discussion for this month.
Secretary Corbett,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron,
Yes.
Director Front, Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Abstain?
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
District Attorney Hicks,
Yes.
Director Holt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
and Judge Warren.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda is agenda item number 4, presentation and approval of financial report and any discussion. So I will welcome Randy Bame up. Thank you.
Actually, virtual.
Oh, virtual. Floor is yours.
Good morning. Get my report pulled up real quick. Okay, we'll start with page 1. And this is the budget to actuals overview. For FY22, our annual budget was $5,361,154. To date, we have spent $3,704,374.69. We still have $575,453.19 encumbered. And then we have a pre-encumbrance of $150.96, which leaves us a variance of $1,081,175.58. And then the next page 2 is our ABC report. And in our 191, we have a cash balance of $281,034.16. In our 192, which is current year appropriations, we have a cash balance of $429,805.56. In our 200 fund, we have $598,247.99. And then we have $24,093.56 in our 210 fund. And then on page 5, this is the 191. We don't have any money that came in since this was last year's appropriations. In the 192, we see that the monthly appropriations have come in up to $2,300,298. The next page is the 200 fund. We've had revenues of $171,409.33. And then our 210 on page 8, we've had revenues of $994,971.12. And then the clearing account, there was a $54 refund in there, which is what that revenue balance was there. And that should be everything. Are there any questions?
Do you mind addressing kind of any of the significant variances from budget to actual to date, particularly as it relates to anything that might impact service? I know there were certain significant variances where you're at today as far as travel reimbursements and things of that nature. Are you expecting that those will not occur, or is it just timing?
I'm sorry, reimbursements on,
Yeah, I'm just looking at page 1, sorry.
okay, on page 1.
I'm reading it right.
Are you talking about, are you talking about the account? Okay, the reimbursement account. I'm sorry.
Actual, where there were significant variances, it appeared that travel reimbursement for.
Oh, yes, travel
I
was,
don't know if that's a matter of just timing, or there's other ways that those costs are being, or services are being performed without travel.
Do you mind if I answer that?
you go
Ms.
right
Hayes?
ahead, Annette.
Okay, all right. So that travel, a lot of it was set aside for training. And a lot of our training still ended up being virtual because of COVID. So we've saved significantly. And in addition, we're finding out that I don't know what's happened, but a lot of the trainings that we used to offer, a lot of folks just aren't charging as much as they did in general. I don't know if it's because they want back into the market and they think they won't be able to, but we just are not being charged what we used to be charged. And I guess we're not complaining. And I think that's truly the bulk of it. I would also say that for a chunk of the year, we still weren't going out as much into the field, but we're doing that again, but we still put quite a bit of money there, but I'm not going to spend all of it.
Any other questions? All right, well, you may notice on the agenda, we've got a typo and it just says discussion under the item. It doesn't say possible action. So this is not an item we can vote on today or vote to table. So we'll have to bring this back at our next commission meeting for approval. So thank you so much for your presentation, Ms. Bain. We appreciate it. I'm going to move on down to agenda item number 7. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, I did. Sorry about that. Agenda item number 3, report from the OCCY Parent Partnership Board. I'm going to turn this over to Delana Sullivan. Thank you. Where's yours?
Hello, I'm going to share my screen. Can y'all see that?
No.
Sorry. I'm Delana Sullivan with the Parent Partnership Board, and I was just going to give an update as to what we've been doing. I can't get my screen to share, so I hope y'all have the PowerPoint slides. Some of the things that we've been working on are we have had some parents, members of the board at a couple of meetings and presenting. We have had Sunny Jamerson at the collaborative meeting with the Department of Health and Department of Human Services with the strengthening families through parent voice presentation. And she did a really good job there. We've also had Dr. Lana Turner presenting at the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness, the Oklahoma Early Childhood Research Symposium panel presentation. We've also last week participated as a board in the strategic sharing workshop with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. That's where we kind of learned how to take our information and relay that out into our communities, because each of us are on the board representing a special interest as parents. So for me, I live in a rural community, and so how do I take what I'm learning from the board and relay that into my community? And also, how do I take the challenges as a parent in a rural setting and express those to people that are, making decisions about our children? So those are some of the things that we've been working on. We've also had meetings in April and May, our board meetings, where we went over the child well-being kid count report that showed that Oklahoma was ranked 42nd nationally. So that was very enlightening. And we kind of reviewed that. We actually had Ms. Jacoby come back in a second time to kind of finish up going over that because we had lots of questions. So we've been very busy. We also are very excited about Isabel Rodriguez being our new OCCY community planner. She's working with parent leadership programs And so we're really happy to have her on staff as a part of our board. And we are also looking forward to meeting with the commissioners starting in the fall. And so that's kind of what we've been up to on the board. And that's kind of it. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate your service and coming and presenting to our board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have item number 7, public comment. Ms. Jett, do we have anybody sign up for public comment? Mr. Dorman, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and let me say congratulations on your election,
Thank you.
as well as the other commissioners. Thank you for your service. Commissioner Laird, thank you for serving as the chair. It's been great to work with the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. Through the years I've been at OICA, I'm coming up on my 6th anniversary. And through that time, I've had the pleasure of meeting many wonderful people. One of those was J. Scott Brown, who served as a former board president for OICA and a former chair of the commission. We, as an organization, have decided to name our individual award after J. Scott. And I'm pleased to announce that the first winner under that new title is going to be Wanda Felty, a former commissioner, I believe is still on the call. Wanda has worked very hard with the developmental disabilities list. And of course, we're familiar with the wonderful work that's going to happen with that going forward with what the legislature did on their appropriations. Our other board awards that we're giving away this year at our Heroes Ball on July 30th will be to Dr. Barbara Bonner for Lifetime Achievement and to Hunger Free Oklahoma for their work on the DUO program and with what they've seen as far as the opportunities presented through the SNAP program. I wanted to invite the commissioners to attend our Heroes Ball. It'll be in Oklahoma City at the Skirvin Hotel on July 30th, and there'll be simulcast from River Spirit in Tulsa on that same night at the same time. So we'd love to see y'all attend. And also want to announce that our Ann Roberts People's Choice Award nominations are now open. So I will send that link to Annette. We would love to see commissioners nominate individuals and organizations who they feel would be the best representation for who should receive our People's Choice Award for the year.
That's great. Joe, thank you so much for presenting and thank you for your service to Oklahoma in many ways and 6 years of service to OICA. Appreciate it. Does anybody else sign up for public comment? Okay. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, presentation on the Oklahoma Parent-Child Assistance Program. And I will turn the floor over to Erin Mayer.
Hi, thank you. So I am the principal investigator of the Oklahoma Parent-Child Assistance Program that you're going to hear about today. And this is Dr. Angela Hardin, who is our project director. And so she's going to start us off. We're going to share the presentation. She's going to start us off with our PowerPoint and give you an overview of the program and the study and our goals for Oklahoma.
Can sing and dance for a little bit.
You don't want. Maybe I'll just go ahead and get started a little bit of the introduction.
Yes, so they are working. Did you get it? Okay, yay.
Ta-da.
Go ahead and just start. For inviting us to present it today.
We're launching a new program that's here from Washington. It started in Washington in the 90s. It's called the Parent-Child Assistance Program. And we talk about it as PCAP for short. It's a mouthful. So it started as an evidence-informed program in Washington in the 90s. We provide intensive case management to women who are over 18 who are struggling with addiction and who are either pregnant or have a child under 24 months old that have been born exposed to substances. It has grown like wildfire in Washington. They're now serving over 1,400 women a year, and they're in pretty much statewide in Washington. And it has come to Oklahoma to do two things. We're wanting to replicate the program here, and we're going to evaluate it. It was an evidence-informed program there, and we would like to make an evidence-based program. And so that's the reason why we brought it here. We would like it to be Medicaid funded. And then we will show through our evaluation how it improves the lives of women, how we improve the lives of their children and the communities in which they live, and also how it saves the state money, the state programs money. And Dr. Mayer will talk a little more about those measures in a minute. But ultimately, we want it to be Medicaid funded and go statewide. And then also we will create a national training and implementation center to support scale and replication. Our partners and funders are very crucial to this project. We brought it here from Washington, and they have been consulting us throughout the whole project on the evaluation part and on launching it. We talk to them daily. We also have a lot of support through OU. We are based at OU in the sociology department in Norman, but we have support from OU Outreach, who usually takes money, but they are actually giving money. And they're helping us by supporting our case management and our supervisors that we're hiring and the site location, which we may actually have a site scarce here. So with our partners. We also are supported by OCCY, and the Department of Mental Health and Department of Human Services are very crucial in bringing this to Oklahoma. They really believe this program will help. And so they are supporting us in many ways, funding and also support and guiding us. And we are also supported by Arnold Family Foundation, Casey Family Programs, and a couple other departments through OU that are supporting us. So.
And you might clarify that OCCY is supporting us through allowing our parent advisors to participate in the strategic sharing workshop. So we're not getting funding from you, just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
But you're a partner and supporter and helped us link up to this great office space upstairs.
Yeah, and so they, yes, you have a question.
We wanted to switch slides. Would you mind saying next
Yeah.
slide so she can go through?
Yeah, of course. And you can go ahead and go to next. So this is just a quick little slide about our basic team, our team. We have Erin Mayer, the principal investigator, and Susan Stoner is the one that's the project director from Washington. We have a developmental behavioral pediatrician, Matthew Deal from OU Health Sciences Center, that's our clinical lead. We have a quantitative analyst through the Department of Sociology and a cost benefit analyst from the Department of Political Science. And then we have two STAR graduate students. Next slide. We also believe that it's really important to have people with lived experience guiding us through this research and providing input into developing the program. So we have built a parent advisory committee. We wanted to have someone from the Tulsa area. We wanted to have someone from the Oklahoma City area because those are the two sites we're going to be piloting in. And they know the resources there and they've gone through the programs. And then we have someone from the Washington PCAP who went through the program, who's also now a case manager. And we have someone from a different state that doesn't have PCAP that's advising us. And they'll help us on everything, on program, on looking at measures, the evaluation, questions for our interviews, for interviewing the case managers. we're just having them give us input. And this is what OCCY supported us on and bringing us for a parent advisory workshop last week. And so 2 out of the 4 got to come. It was really very worthwhile. We really appreciated that. Okay, next slide. So like I said, that the parent, this is an evidence-informed program from Washington. And it started with federal funding as a randomized control trial too, back in the 90s, focused on fetal alcohol syndrome. Now it is sustained, self-sustained. It is about 40% of the program has been funded by Medicaid now. And, but it is saturated in that community. And so they are able to measure the impact on the state program. And that's the reason why they wanted to bring it here to a state that hasn't, so we can do a clean study. And so PCAP is a home visiting model. It is an intensive case management model. It's unique for a couple of reasons. One is because it moms get to develop their own goals. I think that's really important. They have to want to be a part of the program. They develop their goals. The case managers will work with them for 3 years. That's another thing that's really unique in Oklahoma and anywhere probably, is we stick with them no matter whether they relapse, whatever they do, we're going to stick with them for 3 years. And also they have small case loads. The case managers will have only up to 16 moms on their caseload. And we do not provide treatment. That's one thing. We only help coordinate the treatment, help them get there, help them find it, help them stay in it, and then all the other services that they need that are contributing to the stress in their lives that have caused a lot of the problems anyway in their lives, the stress in their lives. Basically, this model was based on, the curriculum is based on 3 theories, and they're relational theory, stages of change, and harm reduction. And basically, the thing that's crucial about this is relationship building, and the moms feeling supported and feeling like someone's there for them. And so that's basically the crucial part of the development of the program. And so we meet the moms where they're at, we hold their hand, and then we walk them through the whole process of recovery. Next slide. So basically, there's 3 goals and primary goals of the program. We assist moms in obtaining treatment and staying in recovery. We link her to services that she needs. And then we are trying to help prevent any future substance use, prevent future subsequent births of children that are born exposed to substances, and then also reduce cases in child welfare and incarceration rates. Very short video. It's really about PCAP coming to Oklahoma. And then Erin's going to talk a little bit more about the outcomes and the evaluation measures.
While they're teeing that up, where do most of your referrals come from? You may have mentioned that if I missed it.
I haven't mentioned about the referrals yet. We're going to launch in August, and so we haven't started the referral.
Okay.
We have started outreach. So we have set up a lot of webinars. We're just getting the word out like to you all. And if we have a website and we have a page there on the website, and moms can self-refer, which they do in Washington. They can be referred by someone that they're working with. And it's a very simple process that Erin will talk a little more about. They just have to put their name and contact information, and then I'll follow up with the screening call. Be able to get the video.
They're trying, sorry.
No,
This all
it's
worked
okay.
yesterday.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm going to go to next slide while you're working on that. It's not too much, but
I'm not sure they're.
that's okay. That's right. When we present this information to community partners and other stakeholders, we talk about the need in Oklahoma, and I don't need to explain to you why this program is so needed here. We have high rates of substance use disorders, high rates of female incarceration due to drugs, with 2/3 of those women in prison are also mothers. We have high rates of foster care due to substance use. So if we make a dent in these things, we think that the savings that the state will realize will pay for the program in a short amount of time. Next slide. So the one important thing about this project is this is a great intervention and everybody is excited about it. But we're not just bringing the intervention here. It came as part of a study. So we are conducting a randomized controlled trial of PCAP, which means we are recruiting women who are interested and eligible in the program. And then we are randomizing them to either receive the program or to receive services in the community as they would normally. Where our supporters, our funders, ourselves, we have mixed feelings about that. We're so excited about this program. We want every woman who steps up and says, I need help to get it. But the short-term harm of randomizing will pay off in the long run, as we will be able to establish the evidence base. And with that comes more federal funding and be able to make this program available to more women over time. So it is important to note that it is a study and it is randomized and there's a control group. And we will be giving the control group resources to access community resources. So they get a little extra help than they would. And then we engage them in the study across the 3-year period.
They have access to your video now.
Oh, great. Okay, let's show the first video about PCAP coming to Oklahoma and destigmatizing substance use disorders among women who are pregnant.
Of course.
Oh dear.
Okay, well, maybe not.
The other thing I could try is that the videos are on our website. We have a PCAP website. I wonder if she links to our website, which is ou.edu/PCAP. Okay. Yeah, if you want to, that would be great. We use these videos to engage our partners in getting excited about the program, and not everybody is steeped in the issues as we are, and so it kind of presents an overview both of PCAP and the issues of substance use disorders. While we have your attention, does anybody have any questions about what's been presented so far? Yeah.
At the end of the 3 years, what is the transition plan to assist them, and how do you price this after the 3 years? I mean, I worry about after the 3 years. What do you do?
Yeah, so there is a part of the program, it's manualized and there's extensive training and supervision. And so there is that preparing women for exit from PCAP, and many women don't want to exit. But they are on secure footing. And of course, if they came back with a crisis or if they become eligible again, they can re-enroll in the program. But when you see the outcomes in Washington, women end the program on a lot more sure footing than when they began. And it's really striking. Okay, thank you, Angela. Great.
Here. Cheryl, we can't hear it. I don't know what else to do other than laugh. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, it's I know. Thanks.
While they're working on it, I had one question.
Yes.
Is there any data in states where this is launched and has been active for a while? Is there any data that kind of correlates between numbers served in this and then numbers in like state custody of kids and child welfare.
Can they hear it?
Just curious if that's reduced those numbers at all.
Yes, they do have data in Washington State on that. It's not in our presentation, but they do show a reduction in the foster care from women who, they don't have a comparison group there, which is a big difference. So we don't know for sure that that decline in children in custody would just happen over time. Some critics could say that. So that's why we're doing the control group, but they're when women come in compared to when they leave, show greater custody of their children at the time they leave. Yeah, it is. So we did a cost saving. I was at Casey Family Programs before coming here to Oklahoma. And they are headquartered in Seattle, which is how I learned about this program at the University of Washington. We did a cost savings brief for them for the state, which looked at all their pre and post match outcomes, monetized those, and said this would be the expected cost savings, and shared that with the state legislature, and they've used that to expand the program to all their counties. That is what we're hoping to do here in Oklahoma, but we'll have more rigorous data to stand on.
Okay, starts, then she'll start talking.
And that's okay without the video. So yeah. The second.
You can't hear it. Okay, still nothing.
I wonder if it's through Zoom.
Send the link out to everybody. That way they can
We'll
watch it.
send a link to our webpage too. So if we go back to the PCAP study slide. That just explains our randomization procedures. Our referrals, women will come to us by any means that they can. In other words, we want women to self-refer themselves.
Addiction affects people from all walks of life and families from generation to generation. It can impact any woman, man, and family in any neighborhood.
Now the video. Now there's this one. Sorry, it's always be black back there.
I'm curious, I'll stop if this starts, but is there in the data in Oklahoma, are the numbers similar for pregnancies that have been exposed to substances in rural versus urban areas? Are they similar, different? Anything we talk about?
Yeah, I haven't looked at that data, and it probably does exist. There are annual reports on substance exposed newborns in Oklahoma. I can't remember if they break it down by rural, urban. We're going to be primarily in urban areas first, but we will be serving some surrounding rural areas if they're within a 40-mile radius. So we might be able to answer some of that too. But yeah, I think the state probably does have data on that, and that'd be interesting. All right, so if you go to the next slide, that's our randomization procedure. And the next slide is just a visual to show that we're going to be collecting various forms of data all along the way across the 3-year period where women are in the intervention. And for the early enrollers, hopefully being able to follow them a year after the intervention and also show the persistent of what we hope to be those positive outcomes. I'll tell you about some of what we're measuring. So you'll know we're going to be producing results all along the way, interim results, but our final results won't come until 2026. When the first women have gone through the program and graduate from the program, and then we analyze the data. So these studies take time and patience. But like I said, we'll be producing reports all along the way and happy to share interim results when they come. We're collecting information, obviously, on women's alcohol use, using a standardized form called the Addiction Severity Index. We are also looking at custody. We're looking into data use agreements with the Child Welfare Department and the kids data so we can track both the comparison group and the treatment group over time, well beyond the program as well. That's the great thing about administrative data. So those are the items that we're asking about on the addiction severity index, but not satisfied with just that. And we're borrowing Washington State's University of Washington's evaluation framework. We want to take this one-time opportunity to collect a little more information. So we've designed our own survey where we're looking at criminal justice involvement, social support, maternal attachment to see if some of these things predict better outcomes. Do they mediate the success of PCAP? We also want to look at benevolent child experiences. We've spent so much attention looking at adversity in early childhood, but what about those protective factors? And that's another way we can strengthen communities is by trying to build protective factors in families. So we're going to be looking at that. And here are the outcomes for Washington State. So these again are at the time women enter the program to the time they leave. But as you can see, these are striking differences in the status. So women come into the program, most of them are very high risk. In other words, they are unemployed. A lot of them have unstable housing situations. Many of them are in domestic violence situations. And so you can see these twofold, threefold increases in improvements in some of these outcomes, such as reductions in use of public assistance, something our state would be very interested in. You see things like increases in stable housing, all the things that can make a difference in someone's path towards long-term recovery. And then if you look at the pie chart, this is the harm reduction piece where we really want to prevent the problems and pain associated with future substance exposed newborns and the costs for both the child, the family, and the state as a whole. So only 10% of the women, that yellow bar, only 10% of the women have, during that 3-year period, have another child who was born exposed to substances. So when you're talking about a population that is as high risk as this when they come into the program, that is a really successful outcome. And even seeing the decline in the use of illicit drugs is really tremendous. So really positive outcomes. We think when we show this with the comparison group, it's going to be equally, if not more striking.
Quick question is, so it's about half of births, but is it also considered a success that there was no subsequent birth?
Yes.
Or,
Yep. One of the goals of the program is to help women who wanted to access and use long-term reliable contraception. So that is part of the program. And a good fit with our site in Tulsa where they have the Taking Control initiative funded by George Kaiser. All right, next slide. And so a key piece of this is monetizing these outcomes like we did for Washington. So we're hoping to show cost savings to the state of Oklahoma from reductions in use of child welfare services such as foster care, reduced use of public assistance, increased employment and education, and fewer subsequent alcohol and drug exposed infants, which you can imagine have a really high societal healthcare cost attached to it. Next slide. So here we are, we launched with planning infrastructure building September 2021 with the support of all our funders. We are going to be enrolling women late this summer. Our job descriptions just posted a couple of days ago. We're hiring case managers and case manager supervisors in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So if you know anyone and want those job descriptions sent around, we'd be happy to share them with you. We're looking at real estate to have an office. A lot of the intervention occurs in the community, but we want to have an office space as well for supervision, for case managers to come and take notes and to sometimes meet clients. And that's why this location is so great. Women will be enrolled for 3 years. And so the first women will graduate around September 2026. And that's when we will do our final analysis and reporting. Next slide. So here is where you can contact us for more information. I'm happy to send around a copy of this PowerPoint. I think we sent a one-page flyer on the program as well that can be distributed. We have a really great video, which is on our website, which is ou.edu/PCAP. That is a present, interviews the case managers about their work with women and some of the women who are in the program and their experiences with it. And I don't know if we want to try that video or if we're just giving up on that, but it's a really powerful video. People tear up. And it really helps engage people with what we're trying to do here in Oklahoma. But we're very excited. Everybody we talk to is so excited. Our slide of partners and supporters keeps getting more and more crowded because everybody's just wanting to pitch in something. So please let us know if you have any questions. We'll be hosting public webinars on our referral process in the next month or so. You'll be on our list where we'll just invite people. We're holding them at different times so people will come whenever they can, because we're casting a wide net. We want anybody and anyone to refer to this program in the simplest, most straightforward way possible, through a phone call or a form on a web page, and then we will follow up and try to engage the women in the program and the study. Yes.
Question, how far into the 3-year program do you start seeing the cost savings with child welfare and public assistance?
Yeah, we don't know that yet. So they might have that data in Washington. Actually, they could break it down. They looked at just at the 3-year outcomes for this presentation. They provided that data for us. I don't know the answer to that, but they have an extensive database of evaluation data. So we could start to look at the outcomes at 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. We have heard concerns that 3 years is too long in terms of cost. And it's a pretty cost efficient program, but the developer of the program would disagree. She thinks that with this population, that 3 years is really needed. But we have gotten pressure to say, well, let's start to look at 2-year outcomes. Maybe you can achieve these same outcomes in 2 years instead of 3. So that, it's a legitimate policy question. And so we will be looking at that ourselves. And if you're interested in the Washington data on that, I'm happy to ask my colleague there to run those numbers for you. Yep.
I understand that it's you're launching it in the urban areas. We're from Western Oklahoma. Some of our cases, over 85% of our deprived cases have a drug component of some sort. Many times our parents moved to Oklahoma City area to get away from the people, places, and things in our area. Would they qualify to be in your program if they are residing in Oklahoma City but have a deprived case?
Absolutely. Yep. Yes. Yeah. And I will say that our biggest supporter, both and financial supporter as well as advocate, Department of Mental Health, which is, after this, if we're sustaining the program, that's where the program will be housed. This is not a child welfare intervention. We don't want it to be a child welfare intervention. Child welfare is also supporting this program financially in our state because they see the benefits, but they don't want that coercive element that often comes with it. So they are applying for a grant right now to expand PCAP to rural areas. It won't be part of this evaluation, but they are so eager. They don't want to wait for 5 years.
Questions? Couple of comments, if I might. I heard you mention Medicaid a couple of times. I don't know if you visited with the Oklahoma Health Care Authority, but you should. They have case managers, or we have case managers dealing with high-risk pregnancies, which include these kinds of issues. I will give everybody the thought here is that, the Medicaid program today in Oklahoma is responsible for 2/3 of the births in Oklahoma. We've expanded Medicaid, so now we serve pregnant women as a member of Medicaid, where we previously only served them as pregnant women. So there's a lot of opportunity here to try to make a difference. If you look at where we are in health in Oklahoma, I would say we are on a transformation process. It's going to be a long one, because we have been longing for this for a long, long time. But if you're interested, I encourage you to look at the governor's dashboard, because there are goals, there are measures that are taking place. Substance abuse in Oklahoma, which no one is immune from, is significantly high, as well as childhood issues, whether it's childhood obesity or just health issues. So all this ties together with what the state is trying to do, which is improve health across the entire state. But quite candidly, and from my standpoint, I'm more biased to kids, because the program itself is predominantly kids. And if we're really going to make a difference, we need to focus on kids today. Certainly parents and others have a role to play, but we need to make a commitment to kids. And where the maternal health or things of this nature is certainly where we ought to be. So I would certainly broker a meeting to make sure that we're very much aligned with what we're doing from a Medicaid program for, quite frankly, 30% of our population.
We have that meeting next week. didn't we?
Great. Great.
On Tuesday. We were just planning for it.
Great.
So, yeah.
Kevin Corbett.
Yeah.
And Trailer's our state Medicaid director, and you'll find him very, very innovative.
He actually has seen, our review, and then we were also meeting.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Thank you for that.
That's great. Any further questions?
Any comment, if it's all right? Program manager for Oklahoma Child Death Review Board, so I just wanted to add another layer there. And last time I was able to run the numbers, that population was closer to 90% Medicaid covered. And a good portion of the caseload, 40% are infants, and 90% of those infants are dying in unsafe sleep situations that I'm fairly confident drugs and alcohol are contributing to. So a little side note there, sorry.
Thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for being so calm and cool while we messed up your presentation.
No, we're so happy to have the opportunity. Thank you so much. And do check out our webpage.
We will, and we'll share the video.
Now, the videos are short.
5 minutes.
Don't let that dissuade you from looking at them, because they are really short and very powerful. I mean, I applied for the job because so, I mean, it made me watch it.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll share that via email.
All right, thank you.
Next on our agenda is agenda item number 9, presentation on the OCCY juvenile competency evaluation. And I will turn it over to Mark James.
Good morning again. I'm going to run briefly through our juvenile competency work. You may be aware, 2015 legislation established juvenile competency as an option in legal matters in the state of Oklahoma. We were the last state to implement such opportunity for youth. So in that time, Title 10A was created. Part of that process, OCCY was given the charge to create a credentialing process for the evaluators to identify credentialed juvenile forensic evaluators who could serve the courts when competency orders have been established. So we do have a professional committee comprised to do that thing, to set up the standards. We have rules that this body has adopted and put in place to determine what the criteria are, and I'll go over briefly in a moment. But there was a change to the statute just last year. Prior to November of last year, this was only afforded for delinquent cases. All youthful offender matters had to go through the adult competency process, which is been in place forever. But law was changed, so beginning November 1, youthful offenders could then access these juvenile forensic evaluators. So we do have a professional committee. The statute and our rules indicate that it has to be the one judge, representing the DAC, of a defender's office, mental health, and then there are several other entities who are involved as well. So the qualifications for our evaluators set up by our rules are: you have to be a licensed psychiatrist, psychologist, or a physician in the state. You have to have 200,000 hours, 2,000 hours. 1,000 of those have to be particularly postdoctoral and working with kids' issues. You have to have experience working, doing psychological evaluations, and you have to go through our credential training program and complete and pass a post-test. In the state of Oklahoma, we currently have 5 credentialed evaluators, and that's not enough, unfortunately. And currently, we contract OCCY with 4 of those, because as you can see on the right side hand of the slide, the statute states ultimately that the expense for these evaluations go to the child or to the parents. The commission, when we began this process, determined that we wanted to not put that burden on the families if we didn't have to. So the commission has been paying these evaluators for this service, except for in Tulsa County. They had a staff for quite some time, a person on staff who was able to do that for them. So we didn't contract with that person. Those 4 others, OCCY has covered those costs. In the years that have been fully implemented, I didn't have fiscal year 16 on here because it started January of 16, so it was only half of the year. In the first 6 months, but these are the last full years since the program has been implemented. 44 of our counties have had at least one order for juvenile competency evaluation. On this table, I've just listed those who had multiple, more than one request over the years. And as you can see, for sure, Oklahoma County is by far the highest user of this program. And I mentioned Tulsa. The Tulsa numbers aren't completely accurate, potentially, because it was not our staff, not our contractor who was conducting them. And so the records aren't completely confident. I'm not confident in Tulsa County's numbers. The numbers may be slightly higher than what they're listed here. And this is just an overview of the results of what we've seen over the past few years. By far, most of the cases that are looked at are determined to be not competent. And largely that is because to request a competency, there has to be some sort of concern by some party. Someone indicates that there's a need for this to be assessed. So there's already an inclination that there's going to be some issue there potentially. And so it turns out that is the case. That about 60.
So Mark, can I just interject? So that's where the evaluators, the credentialed forensic evaluators are stating in the report that their belief is the child's not competent. I don't know that that's always ultimately the judges. We have some judges that disregard what the credentialed forensic evaluators have found.
Certainly. So the information that I have here and I'm reporting is what our evaluators are reporting back to us, the results of their findings and their reports and what they provide to the courts. But the court's final decisions are different at times.
I think it'd be interesting to break this down a little bit further when you're looking at the counties as to the actual number that are being found incompetent and the attorneys that are involved in making the competency request. I'm wondering, I've heard this, that there are some attorneys that are making this request quite often. And so I'm curious.
Yes, I'll go back here. You'll see that there's one particular smaller county who has a much larger number than other counties. And those requests often come from the same attorney. Well, they all have come from the same child attorney. So yes, it makes you curious. That's maybe standard practice potentially, but we don't know that for certain. So again, so those are the numbers that we have, just demonstrating the results of the work that our evaluators are completing. There are some issues we need to address, and we need to figure out how as a state to solve them and resolve them. OCCY again is charged with establishing the process for credentialing the evaluator, and that's where our authority and responsibility ends in statute. But ideally, we try to do more than that and realize that there are areas we need to push to help make this service better for the youth involved and for the courts who rely on this service. First of all, we need more credentialed evaluators. 5 is certainly not enough. And as a result of that, the second bullet at the bottom, statute states that these are supposed to be completed within 30 days of the evaluation. Since the pandemic hit, that has not happened at all. We were meeting that pretty regularly. But then as soon as that happened, first of all, we lost 2 of our evaluators, cut back their availability to do the work. And so that left the burden back on 3, which then increased the workload for sure. So, and we have not been able to catch up. So our evaluations are not done within the 30 days that the statute states that they are to be done. So we need more evaluators for that purpose. The evaluators tell us that they're not fully compensated for the full work that this involves. We began contracting for $1,000 per evaluation when this was implemented in 2016. We bumped that up about 2 years ago to $1,250 per evaluation. But the evaluators still state that does not fully cover the costs of the work that they complete. So fortunately, though, we do have these 5 folks who are at least willing to continue to do the work within it, when essentially they said, they're losing money essentially for this work, but they feel it's important and needed. Another component to that is expert witness cost. There's oftentimes these evaluators are called to report upon their findings of the report. The costs that we provide them are simply for the completion of the evaluation and the report and submitting that to the court. We do not include, we don't have the funds to include also their time in court. So our evaluators saying, you know, oftentimes it takes them a day or half a day or sometimes a full day aside from their practices to comply with these court testimony or this court costs or the court testimony. And they're not getting paid for that. So that's another issue. It's a burden that the evaluators come to us saying that's why it's a struggle for them to do this work, and why we have a hard time recruiting additional ones, because they know that it's gonna hurt them to take on this responsibility. So those are three very important issues regarding that our professional committee is going to do what we can to try to address those issues and concerns. The last one is remediation services. So we have a large number of these juveniles who are found not competent. Well, then at that point, that means the charges against them cannot proceed, and therefore the case is, the state has nothing further to do. But you have a juvenile who's been alleged to commit a crime or an act that puts them, their community in danger potentially. So what do you do with that? Well, the statute says that remediation services help them achieve competency that can be made available. But there is no such service in the state of Oklahoma. We have no entity, no program, no organization, no agency responsible for creating a remediation or restoration program in the state of Oklahoma. So that is a difficulty. I get contacted from DA's office a few times a year saying, okay, so I'm not competent. So now how are you guys going to help me? What do we do with this child? And we've done a few things to try to help connect them with some services, but there is no uniform process. And so it's definitely a struggle what to do for those children who have issues and concerns, but cannot be dealt with through this process. We did meet with some folks. There's a program out of Wisconsin who recently provided a virtual remediation service for one particular juvenile in Tulsa. So we're going to reach out to the Wisconsin program and see what their program is and see if it's an option for us. But again, if it is, who's going to pay for that and how is it going to be set up and established? All those issues have to be worked out and determined and decided. We actually did meet Director Jacoby and I yesterday with Oklahoma County judges and one ADAs to discuss particular issues in Oklahoma County. And they're it's a struggle in Oklahoma County routinely. It has been since the inception, but it's really hitting the head right now. So we're just trying to figure out and work through problems, how to help provide the best services, the best for these youth that we can, while also providing the courts with what they need. But there's just several barriers. And again, it's not on anyone's plate to deal with it. But we've got to find some ways to help to make it work. That's a very quick overview of the juvenile competency work. And I'll also point out OCCY gets no appropriations for this work, and then what we paid to coordinate this program and to contract other evaluators does not get government state appropriations. We have to go find funding, like I mentioned earlier, through our 4E and other resources to pay for those services. So anyway, so if we were to add program and services, we're going to have to go find additional sources to cover that. Yes.
I just want to add, yesterday to Secretary Corbett, you'll be glad to know that Medicaid came up a lot on how to pay for these cases. So you might get another meeting too.
Okay.
You're very popular in these conversations. I just want you to know that.
I would ask the question though, because as I understand it, DMH obviously runs a adult competency program. They are charged with determining competency, and they have a forensic center in Bonita where people go to be remediated for competency and all of that. I don't know if there's a correlation that could be made that DMH should have a role with all competency matters, kids or adults alike. You might check with the Department of Mental Health in terms of how that program works, how it's funded, and what is their role. Because it appears to me they do a lot of what you're talking about for these.
They do. And they have for quite some time. Robin Moores from DMH is on our professional committee.
Okay.
So the juvenile process is more detailed.
Sure.
The criteria is much
Sure.
higher. And the training is quite a bit different.
Sure.
But yes, we attempt to rely on them for their knowledge and information. But I don't know if we spoke this specifically about remediation.
Yeah, I just think about from DMH's standpoint, they are funded to do all the things that you're talking about that we are not funded to do for adults. So is there a way to think about it in terms of just the entire population?
I was gonna ask about insurance. Could it not be billed through commercial insurance and or Medicaid?
Medicaid does not pay, as I understand it, at this point, maybe they do now, for the competency process that DMH runs at the forensic center. I don't believe that's the case. I think they somehow are compensated through another mechanism. And it could be just simply state appropriations for that service. But there's probably more work to do on that. What is the funding source to do all these activities?
Are there any other comments or questions? All right, well, thank you, Mr. James, for the presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, next is agenda item number 10, legislative update. I will turn the floor over to Marcia Johnson.
Good morning. I hope everyone had an opportunity to review the legislative update that's included in your commission packet. I just want to highlight a few of the things that are listed there. Mark already alluded to the commission's appropriation for 2023, which was stable, flat. It's a flat budget for the agency, same as 2022. For the agencies in the Human Services Cabinet, there was a total appropriation, a cumulative appropriation of $893 million, which is an increase of $5.2 million for agencies in the Human Services Cabinet. So the commission is the only agency that did not see an increase. Secondly, the commission's request bill, which was Senate Bill 537, would have allowed the agency to reimburse members of the Parent Partnership Board for their time in participating in meetings and childcare expenses and that sort of thing. It made it through the process and then it was vetoed by the governor. He stated that it would create a slippery slope for which taxpayers would become responsible. So alluding to the fact that it would set up an expectation among other board members, commission members, such as yourselves that aren't agency directors, that you'd be reimbursed for your time. So I don't know if we'll try that again next year. That's up to my pay grade. But it was a tough fight, and it was so exciting when it got sent over to the governor, and then he selected me. So that's the way the process works. There's a couple of bills. I listed bills on here that made it partially through the process and even all the way to the very end, and then didn't take the final step to make it to the governor's desk. And I wasn't going to go over any of those. I was just going to highlight a handful of the ones that did become law. There's a couple of student mental health bills. House Bill 4106. Which directs school districts to develop a protocol for identifying and assisting students who are experiencing a mental health crisis. A related bill, Senate Bill 1307, requires school districts and charter schools that issue student IDs to list the number of the suicide prevention lifeline and the crisis text line on the cards issued to 7th through 12th graders. House Bill 2992 extends the ability to testify outside of the courtrooms in any child in a deprived action. Currently, the statute limits that, affords that opportunity only to children 12 years and younger. Senate Bill 1217 modified numerous provisions of the Youthful Offender Act, including a couple that I'll mention, requiring OJA to complete a certification study as ordered by the court to help determine if a child should be certified as a juvenile or as an adult. It also requires the office to submit a written rehabilitation plan for youthful offenders that are in their custody. Submit those plans to the court and requires the court to conduct a review hearing every 6 months. I'm looking at Director Holt, if you have something else you would add, I feel completely inadequate to discuss the bill.
So Senate Bill 217 is PA Hicks might know as well. The Youthful Offender Act that's been around for 20 years, that's been amended and added, revised 100 times. OJ worked with DAC, several district attorneys from urban and rural locations, and JJOAC also ultimately blessed it to kind of just do a clean slate and rewrite it so it's easier to follow, easier to understand. So when you have district attorneys or defense attorneys that don't do a lot of youthful offender cases, they can hopefully read it and it's a little more reader friendly, and judges as well. Whereas, in Oklahoma and Tulsa County, there are ADAs that have caseloads of youthful offenders that are larger than another judicial district might ever have in a year. And so our goal with this legislation was that the Youthful Offender Act would be applied more evenly and appropriately across the state.
House Bill 3422, I found this interesting. It requires the Office of Management and Enterprise Services to commission a study to examine the compensation of state employees and to conduct an analysis of the workforce and make recommendations to increase or decrease in specific areas. And I think the analysis of the workforce is to examine how many accountants do we have, how many engineers do we have. Maybe we have too many accountants, not enough. I don't know. I think that's interesting, and look forward to their report. And again, touching on the salary study of state employees. It's been done several times, and it's probably do again. So. One last thing that is not listed on the update that I provided is something that developed during the end of session, which I wasn't really aware of until it kind of spilled over into the second special session. And that is that the legislature has apparently come to an agreement to use some ARPA funding to give that to the university hospitals authority and trust to help fund or establish a children's behavioral health center. I guess they've been working very closely with DHS on this. My understanding is they have had some discussions, more limited with OJA, but it's a very exciting thing that is actually going to happen. They're breaking ground on it relatively soon. The Children's Behavioral Health Center will be a 72-bed inpatient facility. Their target group of youth are those that have dual diagnoses, so developmental issues as well as mental health concerns. They will also have a partial hospitalization program and provide outpatient services. And they're building it with the idea in the long run that they can even add more beds. According to Randy Dowell, who's the CEO of University Hospitals Authority Trust, it will be the third largest facility of its kind in the country. So I just talked to him the other day, and it sounds like they're about 3 years out, but they have he gave me a rundown of a lot of things they're doing starting relatively soon to try to help deal with some of these kids that present to their emergency department that are dual diagnosed. They have nowhere for them to go. He told me the story of a young man that came into their department. He was 17 years old. He was very violent, had multiple issues, and he was there for 2 months. And I said, well, how in the world did you keep a young man like that in the emergency department for 2 months? And he said they had to clear out part of one of their wings, and the young man was just there for 2 months. So that highlights the incredible need of these services. And I just think it is so exciting. And it looked like it was that the ARPA funds were going to be distributed to them in a Senate bill. The House didn't take that bill up this week. And my understanding from talking to Randy is that the House wants to roll that money in with a larger mental health package, which would include, I think, some money to mental health for rebuilding Griffin and some other things. So I'm watching that very closely. Hopefully that doesn't get lost in the.
Quick question, the children to be served through those services, are those primarily DHS and OJ custody youth?
Not necessarily, but I mean, a large number of them probably are at least DHS involved. That they don't have to be. It's for any child that has those issues.
But I can tell you that the substantial majority will be Medicaid members and are today. We send a lot of kids out of state because we do not have capacity in state to serve. So.
And that's another thing that I asked Randy. And so it essentially, no child will be turned away, but they will definitely be depending on Medicaid and some private insurance, I'm sure. And then some parents won't have the ability to pay, but they won't be turned away. Like I said, it's 3 years out, but they've got some exciting intermediate steps. And told him that perhaps we could have Randy come at some future date and outline all they're doing. I talked to him yesterday and it's just super exciting.
Will it be an Oklahoma City?
Yes, it will be attached to the children's hospital. I don't think I've left anything out. So essentially, at the end of this session, the legislature appropriated $20 million. They want to distribute $40 million in ARPA funding. And then they are raising money and they've gotten some money from other sources. I think they said it was $120 million project. So anyway, it's long overdue. That's all I had. Unless you have any questions.
Questions? Marcia, thank you so much for your service at the Capitol. You started at a very critical time for us, so thank you.
Yes.
Right, next on our agenda is agenda item number 11, Director's Report. I'll turn it over to Director Jacoby.
Just gonna add a couple things in addition to the written report that I submitted. First, I just want to acknowledge all the work that Assistant Director Mark James has done on the budget. And I'm sure you're noticing, he does a lot of things in addition to his day-to-day job. That's why he's up there talking to you. We thought we had someone hired. She'd signed the papers to be our finance person, and she backed out a day or two before she was supposed to start. So Assistant Director James is very excited about continuing in that role. There was no one sadder that day than Mark James. So let me tell you, so truly, you have no idea how much he's been working on that. In addition, the evaluation, the juvenile competency evaluation, it could be a full-time job. It should be a full-time job. And it's treated more like kind of a side gig. And I don't mean that to demean either the work that's going into it or the actual work, but it needs more time and attention. So we thought it was important to bring it up to you. I also want to introduce our new employee, Isabel Rodriguez. Stand up and say hi, Isabel. We are so excited that we were able to steal her from the Latino Community Development Agency. And thank you for joining us. Nice to meet you. Yeah, so she'll be heading up all the work with our Parent Partnership Board. And so I want to tell you about that. And then lastly, I just wanted to let you know, because I've talked to several of you and maybe we'll talk some more. There are Mark and I run around a lot and talk to folks about the challenges we have with the systems and the number of kids that we really, and we continue to highlight those in these meetings, that we don't have an answer for, and that they get stuck in the wrong place because we don't know what else to do with them, or they're not in a place and they should be. And so we just continue to kind of press buttons. A lot of what OJSO does is look into those situations. So they're investigating situations where kids are plopped where they should not be because we don't know as a state how to handle it. And, you know, looking at things after the fact and saying that's bad is not an answer. It's just highlighting the problem. So please know that we poke and prod and we call you and you call us, and we try our best to set up meetings between affected parties and see if there's something that we can do. I think the best thing this organization does is connect parties that don't know each other or don't know that they're doing something similar. That's why we like to bring presenters to you and let you know what's going on. In addition, or we like to highlight the struggles that maybe one agency is causing to another, and more times than not, it's inadvertent, right? They just, so if we do call, thank you for taking our calls. Know that we're not trying to cause trouble, but usually if we're calling you, it's because someone or someone's are calling us. And we really, really do appreciate your help in that. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll.
Thank you so much. Sure. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to agenda item number 12. Are there any announcements from the commissioners? Hearing none. Agenda item 13, chairperson comments. I just want to, I know Commissioner Laird is not here, but I just want to recognize her and thank her for her service to this board in many different capacities. I know that's taken time and commitment. So thank you to her, and thank you all for your trust and vote to make me the chairperson moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Big shoes to fill, Joe.
I know, I won't be able to, so, but thank you all. And next is agenda item 14. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right, we are adjourned.